Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. Well, it has been a quieter week for us Rovers fans. Not sure if that's a positive or a negative thing. So let's summarise the stories of the week. So it's fixture release day as Rovers open the season with a trip to West Brom. The League Cup will kick off at home to Bradford. Conor O'Riordan joins League One Doncaster Rovers for a season-long loan. And the David Lowe rumours are still circulating that he's leaving after turning down a new role at the club. Mark, this could be a quick podcast this week, mate.
Well, it could be, couldn't it? And I hope so, because I am absolutely melting. I have never seen weather like this in the Northwest, Mike. It is, they don't need to go on a pre-season tour. Just get down to Brockall. It's absolutely melting.
It's disgusting weather this is. I mean, you're ginger, I'm bold. We're not built for this, are we?
I've had a shocker. Me and the sun had a battle and I lost. Yeah.
Well, I was just saying to you before the pod, as people know, I coach before coming to do this for an hour or two. And today I only had to do the first hour, and one of the parents decided to come with 2 barrels of water for all the players and a load of water guns. So we ended up having a water fight at the end of training.
What a legend.
So I've had everyone, so all these planning I do for these sessions, everyone's now messaging saying best session ever. It was all to do with the water pistol. There's nothing to do with my articulate planning of, trying to make them better players. It was just give them a water pistol and say, off you go. So, well, these kids, they're simple beings. But talking of simple beings, me and you, we decided that on this podcast, we was going to go through our old shirts.
Yeah.
We had no idea what we was going to wear, but as luck would have it, we've both turned up with the same shirt today.
Yeah, I mean, if we turned up to a party with the same dress on, we might have felt a bit different, but what more do you want in life? Here we are. We're just too in sync, aren't we, Mike? This happens a lot, to be fair. We'll go, right, we need to pick a player for a topic. It ends up being the same one. We're just too in sync. I think, do you know what? Mrs. Beaty might need to watch herself. I'm going to be honest.
I think I'm turning to the other side with you, Mark. I think we've got a bit too. I mean, I think our periods are in sync with each other now.
Well, maybe, yeah.
So, what's your memory of this shirt then? Because I said before the reason I grabbed this one was the shirts themselves. They weren't bad quality. They weren't fantastic, But I hate the Lonsdale brand, but we had some fantastic memories in them.
We did. Now, do you know what? This is probably the best made of the lot. I think this one still kept its composure. Do you want me to let you into a little secret? So I was on the forum from being 17, and back in the days that we first got Lonsdale, Ken Beamish used to be in charge of, I think he was commercial manager at the time. And what used to happen with the fans forum, they'd bring 3 shirts and you'd pick the favourite design. So he brought 3 shirts of the home kit. You never got to pick the away. And it was turned out to be the Lonsdale home one. And at the time, it was because we had a deal with Sports Direct and they were looking to launch one of their brands that they owned in the football world. And it was actually Slazenger that was on the kit. So the Panther was on the kit. That was going to be the one that they were going to use. And we had a talk about the kits and we had blue shorts, if you remember that year. I think one of the kits they showed us was a faded out. So it was almost white completely at the bottom. So the blue faded right out. And we were like, you can't have that. If you need to mess with something, why don't we have blue shorts? Lo and behold, we got blue shorts and blue socks. But yeah, Slazenger until the last minute was going to be, instead of the Lonsdale, exactly the same kit. And then Lonsdale's, they decided that they were going to use Lonsdale to launch into the football world. So yeah.
I mean, some mighty brands there of Lonsdale and Slazenger being talked about when we was in a good squad then as well. I mean, we was hunting around Europe and stuff, and I just remember seeing Lonsdale and being really disappointed. Sponsor HSA I was all right with, because this was 2004, 2005, wasn't it, this one?
Sounds about right. Health-wise, it pays.
I mean, the sponsor I was happy with. It's got a nice little embroidered BRFC at the base of the back. It is decent quality. But when I saw it was Lonsdale, I was gutted. But what player did it remind you of?
I think the home one, I'm going to go Brett Emerton. But the away one used to remind me of David Thompson. I think he was injured for a lot of this time just before this, and he came back wearing this kit. And I just remember the sleeves are quite long on it, aren't they? They come to sort of just below your elbow. And I remember on David Thompson, they came to about his wrist. So yeah, it was David Thompson.
Yeah, for me, the home one was McEwens, and the away one, I don't know why, it was Morten Gams Pedersen. I just always had a Morten Gams Pedersen feel to it.
Well, wasn't it Pedersen's breakthrough season, really? Did he not score against Cardiff, maybe wearing... I think he wore he wore this one in the Cup, because Cardiff will have been playing in blue at the time. And that was his breakthrough. Yeah.
27 appearances, 8 goals. Yeah, we had a good season. He had a good season, to be fair to him. Yeah. Obviously, we did still have Janssen at the time. Paul Gallagher, there's a name as well. He donned the shirt 21 times. Yeah, it's not a bad one. It was just crazy when you logged into we both logged into this and we were both wearing the same shirt. I mean, crazy times.
I think Yuri Djorkaeff playing this one as well. It was that sort of era, wasn't it? It was it was a tidy little squad. Team.
Yeah, we did well in these. It was just a shame when you look back and you see the Lonsdale name and it's not a proper football brand. So moving on, there's been a lot of questions. We're going to get straight into it. There's been a lot of questions about the lack of a forum recently, Mark. What can you tell us about
that? There was due to be a fans forum, but to be fair, the last one got delayed, so the time between the two, we normally go for about 6 to 8 weeks, and the time between the last two was not great. I think a lot of the hierarchy at the club were going to be on holiday, and then obviously a member of the hierarchy at the football club left, and then we were informed that the date would be 2 weeks today as we're recording it. So what's that, about the 14th of July, I think it is. So that's when it's scheduled to be. But I think it's been a busy time for everybody at the football club. I think it's probably the reasons, but yes, I don't think we're alone. I know there's lots of rumour, and I'm not going to get overly involved in that, but I think a lot of the supporters groups are struggling to get communication from the club, so I'm sure that will get raised. Obviously, at the forum, we have members of the Supporters Trust, representatives of them, representatives of Her Game too, which I'm sure will also want to raise a few matters. Members of Rovers SAS supporters, South Asian supporters group, Proud Rovers, the disabled group. So I will have missed a few, and I apologise, but yeah, it's a decent range of supporters. BRFCS are on there, so yeah, it's a decent range of fans, and I think there might be a few who have some big questions. I think it could be a meaty one.
I mean, I'm seeing a lot, obviously, around social media. I don't get to talk face-to-face with many Rovers fans, but I do talk on social media. I do try and, have these conversations. And I think there's a few people that are trying to be positive, and they're trying to say, well, the reason there's a lack of a forum is because if we have one now, it's going to be majorly negative. But maybe the club's trying to do some stuff positive over the next few weeks. So then when we do have one, it's not quite as much of a bombardment. Are they just being overly positive there?
To be fair, I think genuinely we were trying to arrange it. Generally, we're trying to arrange it with I think used to be the general manager, Lindsay and Steve. But we were looking at dates with that, and then obviously things have changed. So there's no CEO in place at the moment who's normally the person who attends alongside other members of the forum, of the club, sorry. So I think it's more just logistics, to be honest. Everybody was on holiday. I know they took their holidays early June, I think it was. So, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously we're now starting a new season. Technically, the new season is starting now. The fixtures have been released.
Yes.
The first 4, West Brom away, Birmingham City at home, Hull away, Norwich at home. It's not an easy start. We've been known to get results at West Brom. Obviously, Blues are going to be an unknown entity. They're going to be flying high. And then you've got Hull and Norwich that have been a bit of a mixed bag the last couple of years. what's your gut feeling with these first 4 games?
I don't think it's a great time to play Birmingham. I don't. I think there's 2 ways to look at it, I suppose. There's a glass half empty and a glass half full, isn't there? You could look at it and say, well, do you know what? They'll find their feet and then they'll really hit the ground running. Will they have brought in everybody they want to do? Will they have gelled? But I do think they'll have that bit of bounce. They're at home first game, obviously. So then they're coming their first away game. They're going to bring, 7,500 in the Darwin end, you would imagine. Their first game back in the, I would not say big time, but in the Championship. They think that they're going to absolutely storm this league alongside Wrexham. So maybe we'll put them in their place. I mean, Oxford came up last year and they looked a decent outfit, didn't they, early on? West Brom away is an interesting one, though. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've had some people say to me that they think that West Brom are going to struggle this year. So obviously with my history with them and having family members that are fans there, I do have quite a lot of discussions with West Brom fans and people that are there, and they said that they are quite concerned about some of the things that are going on there, that they're being a little bit too tentative with how they're trying to do things, because they've generally been quite a well-run club. So I think they're a little bit concerned. I actually had my nephew on work experience with me all week, and he's a West Brom fan. And when the fixtures came out and he was sat next to me, he was shaking his head. I think he's quite nervous about it. I mean, Blues fans are insufferable at the moment. They're just loving life. And the fact that I'm a New England Patriots fan and they've got Tom Brady on the part of their ownership group is not helping. So I've had a lot of people messaging me about that one. I think for me, I think we could go to West Brom and get something. The Blues one at home is the worry, because if we've still got a toxic atmosphere at Ewood, if things haven't gone quite as well as what we hope, and they come with all their fans and they start strong, I am concerned about that. And then Hull and Norwich, you just never know what you're going to get out of them, because it seems like 1 minute they're up there, the next minute they're relegation fodder. Yeah, I think it's definitely a mixed bag at the start. It's one of those where we could potentially go unbeaten and start strong, but it all depends on how our window goes. I just never know with us. I never know. What the interesting fixture is going to be that 150th anniversary fixture on the 8th of November. They decided derby at home. So we're going to be welcoming, obviously, John Eustace, but Danny Bart, Vyman, and even potentially a Tyrhys Dolan to Ewood Park on that game.
Absolutely. I think those first games, what I would say is I probably prefer them the way around they are than the opposite. So if you had West Brom at home, but then you're going to Birmingham away, I'd not fancy that one as much. Same with Hull and Norwich, really, rather have them that way around. But yeah, bringing Derby, I think it's a good historic club, isn't it? What I wouldn't really have wanted was a nothing game as such, but for every reason, that should have a little bit extra on it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how we do that game as well. I mean, obviously, you're probably going to hear on the forum over the next few weeks, I hope, with whatever plans they're going to have for that. It's a fun time of year, when it's those cold days, watching Rovers. Yeah, I hope that game goes well. But then we go into the Christmas period, and we've got one home game to start it off with at the 20th with Millwall. And then we've got 2 away games with Borough and Sheff Wednesday. And then New Year's Day is home to Wrexham. That's potentially quite a tough run of fixtures as well.
Again, I think Wrexham in the FA Cup filled that away end. New Year's Day, traditionally a good crowd. So, yeah, I think if you're on a good run, they all seem relatively easy, don't they? You look at that and think, Millwall at home are beatable. Middlesbrough, we've got a cracking record up at the Riverside. I think did we beat them on Boxing Day once upon a time as well? Sheff Wednesday away. I mean, what a mess they're in as a club. Wrexham then coming to Ewood might well be struggling over Christmas time. They think they're going to storm this league, and then they come to little old Blackburn Rovers. So yeah, I think we'll be absolutely fine, mate. I'll be honest, I've looked at the fixtures, and I don't think we'll lose all season.
No, and we're going to obviously finish quite strong at Leicester at home because we love playing Leicester on the final day of the season, and that's going to be a nice promotion party for us, obviously. I mean, it's really hard when the fixtures come out to kind of get excited at the moment because I don't really know who I'm going to be supporting. I know I'm going to be supporting Blackburn, but I don't know who's going to be wearing that shirt. So I think it's quite hard to get excited at the moment when there's so many balls up in the air. There's some interesting fixtures I've seen just because of the history of how we've done things. I looked on the 31st of January and I wanted to see where we are at home, which is good, which means we've got all the people that we need in the right place for when that window closes. But then I was thinking we'd normally have a lull at the start of the new year. So I was looking at some of those, and we've got home, away, home, away, home. So we've got a decent run of home games that you'd like to think we could get something out of. And they're games that I'd like to think that, we play relatively well. So it's interesting, the psychology of being a Rovers fan, what I actually look for in the fixture list. And the first thing I look for is, right, when we have our normal winter lull, who's that going to be against?
Yeah. And then, like you've talked about there, you look at the sort of February period and think, it's going to be tough. But then last year, we played, was it 3 of the bottom 4 and lost each game? I mean, I'm looking at the last 7 games there, and you would imagine... So the last 7 games, if you think we're start of April, whether we are in this mix or not, you would imagine the majority of these teams, maybe not Stoke, would be in with a shout of the playoffs at the very least. So we are away at Birmingham, home to West Brom, away at Stoke, home to Coventry, away to Sheffield United, away to Southampton, and at home to Leicester. That, I mean,
brutal.
It is. But then we usually have a decent end to the season. So actually, maybe it'll all work out in our favour. And the teams that we need to beat around us, we'll beat, and then we'll secure that second or first spot. Maybe against Southampton, actually, with a game to spare. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? We can then all celebrate at home, at Ewood for that promotion party. And we've discussed that we're going to try and have a Blackburn End Podcast day out.
Yes.
So we're going to start figuring out some fixtures which we can do and we'll advertise where we're going to be. So, we can have a pint with some people.
Sounds good.
I think I'm excited for the season as any other season. The thing I both love and hate in equal measures is how I just never know how it's going to be. Last season, I thought it was going to be, mid to low ends and flirting with relegation, and it was the other way. In the season before, where I felt like actually we could make a push, we need to get relegated. So it's a lottery being a Rovers fan.
Tell me about it. It is. That's the makeup of the Championship, though, isn't it? I mean, we're looking at this, and you're saying there that some of the people around your area are looking at West Brom and thinking they might struggle. You would typically imagine West Brom will be in and around the playoffs. Hull will go one way or the other. You've got Norwich. They've underperformed the last few years. Yeah, I just think, will the relegated side be as strong as you would expect? You'd imagine so, but you just never quite know. Look at Luton. So, yeah, I don't think you can read too much into them. For me, it's more looking at dates of things. So when am I on holiday? Where are we Boxing Day? Where are we New Year's Day? Last game of the season, those kind of things. I don't think you can read too much into them at all at this moment in time. But yeah, let's get that.
And they always change, don't they? There's always Sky getting their fingers in there and moving stuff around.
I believe Sky have managed to get their fingers in the pie of the first game being every one of them on, even though it's Saturday at 3 p.m, are going to be on Sky. Now, I know there's a blackout, but apparently it's some little tiny element of the rules where that has to have a certain percentage of the top flight teams playing and none of them do. So I think Sky found a bit of a loophole. But hey ho, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm more interested in getting this away day booked in, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to try and get to more games this year. Last year was a joke with the amount of coaching I had to do, and I've hopefully managed to delegate some of it off to people.
Great
So
news.
yeah, I'm definitely going to be getting to some away days. It's funny what dates we all look for. Personally, you look for your own birthdays, you look for stuff like that. But yeah, people put their comments down below. What fixtures do you look for? And what fixtures, what teams do you look for as well? So for me, I'm always looking for the Midland clubs because I know more people. But where do you live, and who do you look for? What rivalries do you have that are completely out of the blue? Like, for example, I can't stand Fulham. Don't know why, just can't stand them. As well as the local ones around me. So yeah, put your comments down below. But we also got drawn in the League Cup. We are home to Bradford. Now, the League Cup last year was an atrocious showing for us. I think it's quite important for us this year. I want to see us have a little bit of a cup run, but only if we manage to sign some players to get some depth. I want to see some of these players actually having an opportunity to play in these games, because last year we signed the likes of Toth and we couldn't see him for ages, whereas these games would have been absolutely perfect for them to get a run. So I want us to take this seriously. I want us to try and get some cup runs going so we can play some of our new signings or even some of our youngsters. What's your thoughts on the cups this year? How important are they to you?
In terms of going to win it, we're not going to win it. All those people who say, well, I want to go to Wembley for a day out, I don't subscribe to that. I think you go to Wembley to win or you don't enjoy it. But I think what you've just said there is what we missed last season. We couldn't have a look at Toth. And I think sometimes you might get a Tyjon plays, gets a couple of goals, and all of a sudden his first team chances are different. I think it's probably more important this year than last year, because I think Eustace kind of had who he relied upon and didn't really change his mind. He wasn't that keen on playing the youngsters at any point anyway. So I don't think it would have changed it too much. Maybe Toth, maybe one or two, but I think this year will be different. I think it will go back to similar it was with JDT, where we will say, right, do you know what? First game of the season, I think people get a sniff in and around pre-season, but first game of season away at West Brom, and then, right, Bradford, maybe even 11 changes. Okay, go and show me what you can do. Here's your chance. Go and impress. Jake Batty's obviously looking at signing a new deal. You'd imagine he'll be figuring, Tyjon, Leonard, maybe, all those on the fringes. Okay, lads, let's have a look. And the first one in particular is one that you need to just get through, because the second one falls again before the window closes. We notoriously do business late on, and that's what did for Toth, because then when he signed, we didn't have that game. So yeah, that.
Yeah, I definitely want us to have some sort of cup run. I don't want us to sacrifice the league, be it we're pushing or trying to stay up, whatever. I don't want us to be sacrificing the league. But I do think it's really important to have that opportunity for these players to play. One player that obviously won't be playing is Conor O'Riordan. It's quite funny because when he went out on loan, there was quite a few people commenting saying, "Oh, well, that's it. He's not good enough. Why have we even kept him? Just get rid of him." It's like, he's 21. And like I tweeted out, Scott Wharton, I think, had 5 loans by the age of 23. I think Hayden Carter, by the same age of O'Riordan, had 2 loans. They're young lads, and young lads need opportunities to play. And if they feel like he needs to go and get a bit more experience, fair play, go get that experience. He didn't have a fantastic loan last year. So maybe it's just like, do you know what? You do need to go and find somewhere solid to have that performance. Look at Hayden Carter. Portsmouth were absolutely, smitten with him, and they were gutted when he left. And he came back to us, and he ended up becoming a pretty important player. So, what's your thoughts on this, O'Riordan? Are you panicked by it, or are you sane like the rest of us, like me?
Absolutely the same. I think keepers and centre halves don't tend, I mean, unless you're talking the real exceptions, they don't tend to get in your team until they're 24, 25. So O'Riordan had a poor loan at Cambridge when they played 4 at the back. He went back to Crewe and had a really, really good loan. They played 3 at the back. I don't know what system Doncaster are going to play, but he needs to go and play week in, week out first team football. I mean, Scott Wharton did that 2 or 3 loans, and you kept thinking, right, I think there was one at Lincoln in particular where he played almost every week and they loved him, scored, they did pretty well in the league, and he came back in pre-season and he thought, right, that's nailed on. And then Mowbray sent him out again and said, no, I was a centre-half. There's certain things that you just need, and it comes with age. Off you go again. And I think we all thought then, well, Scott Wharton's no chance. He's clearly not good enough. Mowbray doesn't rate him enough. It wasn't that at all. Mowbray was just very much, I'm a centre-half, and I know what these guys need and when they're ready to be trusted week in, week out. And if they're going to be sat on the bench, what's the point in having them there? That's where you have your Adam Forshaws to just make the numbers up a little bit. I would imagine Ismail's exactly the same. He's a centre-half himself. He knows what it takes to be a centre-half. If O'Reilly's not quite ready, go and get him a year's experience. I think the perfect example is what you said. Hayden Carter was close to going out the door, wasn't he? He went on loan to Portsmouth, came back absolutely flying. They wanted him. It enhanced his reputation with us, and off he goes. And he's hit the ground running really. But it's up to Conor O'Riordan ultimately. He's got to go and do it himself. But I'm not flustered by it at all. I think if he's not going to play week in, week out, get him out on loan.
No, exactly. And I didn't expect us to probably focus on Conor O'Riordan at this point of the season, going out on loan. But that's what happens when you've had a slow week. So we'll carry on talking about him. But some of the comments are, like California Rover said, what a waste of 1 million on Conor and Dylan. People saying, why did we bother buying this lad? What a waste of money. We need more centre-backs. The lad needs a chance with Rovers. Why sign him and send him out? We need signings. Why has he gone out? I think the thing is, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and we're just here to kind of discuss these options. And this isn't a Conor O'Riordan conversation. This is just a general football development conversation. Everyone develops differently, mentally and physically. He's a big lad. He's obviously got some talent. And yes, we have spent money on him, and we don't have much money to spend. So when we do spend money, you kind of hope that it's being spent on the first team. But sometimes you need to spend money on the future. They had an opportunity to sign a player that obviously showed some talent and something that they liked. And they've gone and, taken this, gamble. It's a bit of a gamble. But like you said, centre half, goalkeeper, they mature differently. They play at a different age. It's actually quite rare to get a young centre half that plays in the top 2 divisions, regularly. So I can't remember many players under the age of like 23, 24 at centre back that play as regularly as what we would need. So I completely agree with you. I think in this situation, we've obviously bought him for the future. He's got a contract with us. Let's go and see what happens. We do need players in that position. We know. But I'd prefer to get the right players in that position rather than throwing him in there. It develops somewhere else and we end up looking, what if? There's obviously a plan. They're not going to be left short. I know that we've lost faith in the owners and we've lost faith in the, how we recruit. But we've still got to believe that there is a plan.
Yeah, I think Conor O'Riordan was not really, if we're being realistic, in our top 4 centre-halves this season. And the fact that he struggled on loan in a 4 at the back, and we predominantly do play that or have done, maybe he just needs to go and play in a 4 at the back and go and establish himself. I mean, he's a very big lad. He's got all the raw attributes. He's quick. He's decent on the ball. He's quite composed. But he's not filled out yet. And will he get a bit bullied by strikers in the Championship? Maybe. I think, you're looking at the ones that are there. Maybe it would have been 4th choice right now, but I think we're obviously looking to bring somebody in as well, and that would have pushed him further down the pecking order. So I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. We'll just wait and see. I think we need to be a little bit realistic sometimes with our signings. Other rumours, that's obviously solid, but there are some rumours that have gone that we've actually missed out on that Brian de Kersmaker, if that is his name, that apparently has now gone to Oxford. The rumours are that we didn't actually bid as much as Oxford did, and that's triggered a few fans saying that, if how are we being outbid for players by Oxford, but at the end of the day, you put your valuation on these players, and you don't want to be held to ransom. The thing I did love is I've seen a few people mentioning this, saying, we're getting triggered by players that we had to Google like 2 days ago. So like not signing for us. So why are we getting stressed about players that haven't even, been on our radar? So let's just get over it and move on. I think for me, if we have missed out on this player and, we don't know how it's going to work out for him, but I don't want to be held to ransom. If the club only has a certain budget, I don't want us to go and blow it on one player that we're not necessarily certain on. If we felt like he was worth it, we would have bid for it.
Yeah, I think it's because of people's general opinion of the club at this moment in time, isn't it? That everybody sees that as a negative. I think had we felt like we had full faith in our owners and the model and the transfer policy, then actually that's exactly what people would have been saying. Good on us not to be held to ransom. Same with the individual players, they would have been turning around, and Tyrhys Dolan would have been the villain in the piece. Well, how much money does he think he wants? Like it was back in Conor Mahoney, I suppose, even to some extent. He was the one who was, he must be asking for too much money. That chat's not about Tyrhys Dolan. That chat's not about this player or his club. It's just automatically assumed by people that, you know what, we're not doing things right. Actually, maybe we are doing things right in that case. Maybe we think his ceiling is, 2 million. And they're going, do you know what, we're going to pay 3. Fine, crack on. We talked about Lewis Travis, didn't we? And if he's going to go out the door, there's rumoured fees of, 2 million? I'd be pretty upset if we brought somebody else in at another million and he was an unknown and a big gamble. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we are talking about some of these players, because going back to the Sunderland Till I Die documentary that we spoke about last week, we saw what happened in the second season when they were buying Will Grigg. The owner was just going up and up and up. I don't want my club to be like that. There's certain risks that you're going to be taking. I don't want to be a risk-taking club to that level. Granted, we're going to be taking gambles with players with smaller fees, but I don't want to be chucking 3 or 4 million at a player that we're not sure if he's going to make it or not when we haven't got the budget to kind of cover that. When it comes to Dolan, people are saying Dolan is about money, like you said. It might not be. There's a lot of factors that could go into the Dolan situation on whether he wasn't going to be guaranteed where to play or anything like that. He might not have felt loved. Whatever it is, if he signs for a rival and he does well, I'm going to be gutted, obviously. But let's be honest, he had a good finish to the season, but there were still question marks over him at times. So I'm trying not to focus too much on Dolan leaving and getting triggered by it, because there were so many times he did frustrate me. Would I prefer him to sign a contract and be with us? Of course. Do I think he's got a load of potential? Of course. But there was a lot of times he frustrated me. So if he does go out the door, well, which he looks like he has done, I don't think I'm going to cry myself to sleep over it.
Yeah, I remember in one of his first fans forums that he attended, Rudy Gestead talked about you can't be emotional in transfers. We will be emotional as fans, but he said as people behind the scenes at a football club, your job is to not make emotional decisions, and it's very difficult. And he harked back to the Joe Rothwell turned down bid and said financially, that's a no-brainer. We made an emotional decision and a gamble that then impacts our window in the summer, the next ones, and the next 3 or 4. And he said his job is to make sure that we're not emotional in the transfer window. We're realistic. We have our targets. We have our budgets. We have what we are willing to pay for them, and calculated gambles, and we stick to it. That'll be frustrating as a football club, as a football fan. And I think had that been said by a employee of a club that you had full faith in, I think most of us at the time, when you're not het up with emotion in the middle of a January transfer window, for example, you would say, do you know what, that's the right thing to do. But football's an emotional game, and come the end of the transfer window, when we've just been offered Ronaldo and we've decided not to do, and we've signed his cousin instead, we might be feeling a bit different. But right now, I can kind of get where he's coming from, and I'm still at the stage, I'm still quite comfortable. Okay, show me. You've said that actions will play out. Okay, we'll have a look after the window closes.
And that's exactly my point previously. We talk. We've got this podcast. We talk about things as we are right this second. General emotional reactions to things, but I actually judge how we've done things at the end of the first window, at the end of the second window, and then how we finished the season. And when we reviewed last season, there was times last season we were so pissed off, like as fans, about the club, the running the club, the team, some of the players, and we were pointing fingers. But come the end of the season, we finished very close to playoffs. For 5 minutes of that final game of the season, we were in the playoffs. We couldn't have expected that. No. And whilst we can say, it was luck rather than judgment, at the end of the day, we were still there. So if we lose players right now, it's. Have you heard the fable about the Chinese farmer?
No, carry on.
Where he says, "Okay, I need to find this. Give me a second, actually."
Okay. Dramatic pause.
Okay.
Oh.
So this is quite. I had this printed out. You see, because it means a lot. So there's a Chinese story of an old farmer, and he had this horse for tiling for going in his fields. And one day the horse escaped into the hills, and when all the farmers' neighbours come round, they came over and they said, well, that's a bit of bad luck. And he said, maybe. And then the next day, the horse comes back with 7 wild horses. And his neighbours come around and say, oh, that's good luck. And they say, and he goes, maybe. Then the next day, his son is trying to ride one of these horses and breaks his leg. And the neighbours come round and they say, oh, that's a bit of bad luck. And he goes, maybe. The day after, the army comes round and they're trying to get him to join the army, and they realise that his son has a broken leg and can't join, so he doesn't go. And the neighbours come around and they say, oh, that's a bit of good luck. And he says, maybe. And the point of it, and this is why I love this so much, is you don't know what's going to be good luck or bad luck. So you might lose a player and think, oh my God, what have we done here? We should be getting this player. We should be signing him. We should be keeping him on board. But you could go and sign someone that becomes the next Bradley Dack, the next Matt Jansen, the next club legend. You don't know what's round the corner. So whilst I do get annoyed with certain things, because I think there's certain players that have value and that we should be keeping, ultimately, you don't know who's going to replace them and what they're going to do. I will hark back to that Bradley Dack signing so many times. Name one person that looked at the Bradley Dack signing and was like excited and expected him to do what he did. No one did. And then he goes and becomes this absolute club legend. And that's why I'm quite laid back sometimes about losing some of these players. Adam Morton, that was different because I think we could have just got more money for him. But it wasn't. But yeah, I just think that you just don't know what's going to happen.
You don't. And last week we talked about Andy Vyman and Danny Bart, and we said they could not play a minute of football for the next 2 years. Can easily happen. I think you go back in Rovers history. Brad Friedel, why are we signing him? We've got John Filan and Alan Kelly. Ryan Nelson, who's he? Samba, similar story. Stephen Warnock, can't get in Liverpool's team. What are we doing? There's a catalogue of them. Now, yes, there's the other side of it where you look at, we should have sold Benny McCarthy when Chelsea were offering 18 million. Of course we should. But these things happen. And I think there are times where I have sympathy with certain members of the club. I think the Joe Rothwell one was the big one for me because we were first or certainly second in the league at the time, miles clear of certain teams, but Bournemouth had games in hand. if we'd have sold him to Bournemouth and the season played out exactly as it did, point for point, Venky's would never hear the end of it. They've thrown promotion away. They've no ambition. They kept him, and we've still missed out on the playoffs. And then they're idiots, and they should have sold. So I do think there's a little bit of that. What I would say, though, is you've got to mitigate and limit the risk. One of the things that they did say to do that is you need players in the door for the beginning of pre-season. And so far, I'm not counting Adam Forshaw as another sign. So we've signed 2 so far. So I think we need to start shifting people through that door very, very, very quickly. Otherwise, the risk increases, because I think it was, I'm going to find out exactly what the number was, but Adam Owen's figure was something along the lines of, if you miss 75% of pre-season, you're likely to miss 75% of the season, or you play 75% less minutes, whatever it was. And we need them through the door, because this male, as we know, wants to play high intensity, high pressing. So they need to be fit for it. Otherwise, you're setting yourselves up to fail from day one.
Which is why these contracts need to get sorted as soon as possible. I mean, I think it's obvious now that Bart, Vyman, and Dolan aren't coming back. That's all effectively set in stone.
Yeah.
But the futures for your Travises and so on, and even your Callum Brittons, because if he's not looking to sign a new deal, there's value in him this year. And as much as I would hate to see him go, you know, do you pull the trigger and you think, do you know what? Okay, there's value in you. Let's cash in on you and find the next Callum Britton. You know, these are what they need to do. But I like to think that the club has its canvas, you know, there, and it has its pieces ready, and then they can start picking around and saying, right, how do we fill these holes? But at the moment, it seems like they're not sure which holes are going to get bigger, and it's like we don't really know where we might need to even spend money, which we didn't really plan for. And that's the concern for me, really, because the thing that we've said all along is about depth. Now, we then get people saying, well, we've got this many centre-backs, we've got this, that, and the other. Well, yeah, but it's more quality of depth what we're looking for. I want the players that are coming in to actually have some sort of either potential, because they're young, or have some sort of experience in the league that they're actually playing. And we haven't really had that recently. So whoever comes through the door, and I'm not seeing any rumours this week that actually have any kind of solid base, but I want anyone that's coming through the door to actually just offer something to the first team in some way. And we said before, we are a club that keeps our cards close to our chest, because we have to, because we haven't got the money to outbid people. We haven't got the budget to outbid people. Not because we haven't necessarily got the money, but because we don't want to spend the money, which is another argument. But we do need to start getting through these people through the door, because, like you said, pre-season started, and this is when they want them.
Yeah, and I will be as vocal as anybody if, come beginning of the season, end of the transfer window, Travis, Britton, and Tronstad are out the door. But the mess has already been created. What you can't do is then double down on that mess and lose them all on a free. So if that's what we're facing, we are where we are now. We need to learn the lessons from it. But if they're not going to sign new deals, then you need to sell them to the highest bidder, I'm afraid. And unless they're not offering anywhere near what it would cost to replace them, then it's pointless. But would you pay a £2 million loan fee for each of them for a year? No, we wouldn't. And that's effectively the situation we're in right now. So learn from it. Don't get yourselves in this mess again. Don't let people get into the last 2 years of their contract. But we are where we are. If they're not going to sign a new deal, sell them to the highest bidder. And don't get me wrong, I don't want that to happen. And I will be, like I've said, as vocal as anybody. But the mess has already been created. You've now got to make the best of it. And either they sign again, or you get them out the door. And you've handed the initiative to the players. So if they're asking for more money, or do you know what, I'm just going to wait this out, again, you reap what you sow.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because we felt like we'd sorted it with the Greg Broughton era and the project, so to speak. We got really excited with the fact that we started to see contracts signed and people actually being sold for decent value, and that if they did have value, they were gone. And then we seemed to not necessarily reinvest fully, but you could see that there was some part of the project that we could get behind. And it feels like we've moved away from that, and now we're trying to move back to it. And that's what's frustrating, because it's like, I thought we'd learnt our lesson. We obviously hadn't. And now we're trying to relearn the same lesson. And that is frustrating. But saying that, next week we could be talking about 3 or 4 signings, because we did it last year where we just had these flurry of signings. So we don't know. It's all speculation. I try not to get too stressed. I can't lose any more hair over it anyway. So it is a case of just refreshing X every single day and seeing what Dolan's social media team's doing, just showing him on a local 3G with his mucker, just running through some cones. I think we're going to see where Dolan's going to be gone in the next day or two. I mean, to be honest, by the time this is out, because this is Monday the 30th, it might already have been announced tomorrow, which is Tuesday the 1st. Is going to be really interesting. Moving on from the rumours, is there any news on kit release? Anything you're hearing?
There's no sniffs of it just yet. I think if we follow last season, we're ahead of where we were last season. But if we do follow last season, I think the away kit came 2 weeks after, and then the third kit was about the same. But I think we've released that home kit a little bit earlier than we did last year. Well, we definitely have than we did last year. So I think we might be... what they tended to do last year was they had... Might have been last year, might have been the year before now I'm saying that. They tended to have the first home kit ready for the first pre-season friendly, the away kit ready for the next one, and they kind of wore them there. So we've a couple of weeks away from that yet. So, yeah, I think we'll probably have the away kit ready for maybe the Everton game. But yeah, I mean, it was my birthday last week, and I was very kindly bought the training kit. I'm very happy with that at this moment in time. I've seen the home shirt up close and personal. I don't think it's for me, I'm going to be honest, especially as the price has gone up to £60 and there's the likelihood of 4 of them coming out that will all have a 12-month expiry. But yes, I am. I'm waiting the away kits. Yeah.
Well, that goes beautifully into you selling up the competition to actually win that home kit. We've been tweeting out about it on how to try and help us grow. Just any tweets we put out to do with the competition, to do, make sure you are tagging people, you're sharing, you're subscribing, doing all the good stuff, because we are trying to get this competition run. And obviously, we can only send the shirt locally to the UK, I'm afraid. But if people outside of the UK, you want to help share and tag people, that's brilliant. Because, you know, we see this podcast as yours just as much as ours. If you're listening, you're part of the family. So just make sure you are sharing and tagging in as many people as you can. So, Mark, is there any other kit releases you've seen this week you want to comment on by any chance?
Well, I did like the Stoke one. I don't know if you've seen that. They've got Macron and they've gone for the old badge. Like that. Looks like you've dropped a tablet of LSD. Not that I would know what that's like at all, just to clarify. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But for me, I mean, if you're going to have a new kit, it's pretty basic that you don't have the colours of your main rival in it. I mean, if we had Watson Ramsbottom, and they decided to have a claret and blue logo, I'd be a bit peed off. That kind of comes above and beyond who is on your shirt. So then when it comes to having a local Jacket Spuds on your shirt, selling them out of a van, don't get that trend either. Jacket Spuds aren't even that good, let alone out of a van. But then to have an orange tangerine logo on your shirt, come on. What an absolute embarrassment that is.
It's one of the most awful sponsors on a shirt that I've seen, and we've had some horrendous ones, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I can't see that one flying off the shelves.
It's just, I mean, it's got tangerine on it. What is going on? Or it certainly looks it from a distance. I mean, Preston's kits they're pretty poor anyway, aren't they? I know we are limited by our blue and white halves, which limits you massively. But they can have different, they have navy blue on sometimes, different patterns. I've seen them with some stripes occasionally. yet they just seem to trot out the same old absolute turd every season. I mean, Castora are an awful sponsor, but then to tidy that up with a nice tangerine Spud, what an absolute joke. I am glad I am not a Preston fan.
I might say jacket potatoes are overrated anyway. I don't think I've had a proper jacket potato with anything in for a while.
If you come home and say, what's for tea? Oh, jacket Spud. Come on, put some effort in. No.
I will be disappointed, to be fair. We're probably going to get comments down below saying about how jacket potatoes are awesome with a bit of beans and cheese or something, but nah, not for me.
They're all right. It's kind of, what can I have for dinner? Oh, there's nothing around. Well, I'll have one of them. And you put cheese and beans on it and load it on because a jacket Spud's pretty rubbish on its own. Yeah.
That's the thing. I'd go for like loaded potato skins or something, but no, not a Spud.
Potato skins, exactly. Get rid of the potato bit, just have the nice bit. Job done. Exactly.
Well, put your thoughts down below what your thoughts are on jacket potatoes. See, it's been a slow week. And we're on to the 50th minute and we're now talking about jacket potatoes. So, it is getting a little bit slow at the moment. But we have one last subject to talk about before we finish the pod, and that is David Lowe. I think there's a lot of fans, getting into the social media again, talking about the David Lowe situation, saying it's a disgrace that we've got someone like him that we're not keeping around. It sounds like, and this is all rumours and everything, so we're not trying to pretend that this is all gospel, but we're hearing that he'd been offered a role elsewhere and he's decided he doesn't want that role and he's going to move on. Is there anything you're hearing at your end?
No, when you say elsewhere, you mean elsewhere in the club, do you? A different role within our club?
No, as in leaving the club. So apparently he's been offered a role within the club he doesn't want. And so unless he's what role, what was his actual title?
I think he's just first team coach, but he was doing a different role within that. So previously he was working as opposition scout essentially, but he underused this. But what I would say is this is again one of them where the club can't really win, because not that long ago people were talking about, do you know what, under Mowbray in particular, why have we kept David Lowe and Ben Benson? You need to get rid of that backroom staff. It's clearly not been working, freshen it up. And then there was even talk for a while of David Lowe, who's been there for years. He must be a Venky's plant. He must be part of that agency. So, yeah, don't get me wrong. Absolutely full credit to David Lowe for what he did last season. But I think this is probably a football decision. John Eustace essentially made the same decision and moved him out to a different role. Maybe Gary Boyer never wanted to be a first-team manager, got a taste of it and enjoyed it. Maybe that's where David Lowe's at. And he enjoys being on the grass, you would imagine. Every time you see a video clip of the training sessions that he's doing, he seems to be enjoying it more than the players, doesn't he? He's fully into it. So he must miss being on the grass. He's had a little taste of it, wants to get back there. I'm fine with it. I'm not going to get too hung up on this one. I think it's probably a personal decision for everybody. And actually, part of being a grown-up is having grown-up conversations and being honest with each other. The worst thing is if they just keep him on and then he's putting the corns out. So, yeah.
Well, exactly. And he's got his own career to think of. There was life before Blackburn for him. There'll be life after. And it is a business. So I do understand the level. I mean, if it was a storybook, business, you'd have people coming in at 16, playing for the club, and then coming through, being coaches and staying there all. But, football is a business. I think it's just something where sometimes they need to move on. And at the end of the day, if I had a manager come in, I'm pretty sure I would want him to have the people around him that he wants, because if you've got coaches that are going to have their own coaching style, coaching their own specific ways and how to do things, Ismail might not agree with it. So, you could have contradicting, styles there. So actually, I'm not against changing coaching staff. It was different during the Tony Parks ages because you didn't really change the styles too much, but nowadays you do see quite a lot of style changes. So I'm not against it. It's a shame, but it's not unheard of for people to come in and change their full coaching staff. And if they're going to back the manager, they've got to back him from top to bottom. So, and it sounds like that's what they've done.
Yeah, there's two schools of thought, I suppose, isn't there? There was a good spell at Brentford where the head coach changed, but the backroom staff didn't, and that allowed them to keep that continuity. I think that is one way of looking at it. But then again, on Brentford, can you imagine the uproar if we'd have appointed Keith Andrews?
Well, exactly. I thought that was a bit of a left field manager signing there.
I mean,
again,
we all know
time will tell.
He's going to be great on the touchline at pointing here, there, and everywhere because that's all they did on the pitch. But yeah, Keith Andrews as a manager. Well, maybe we've missed a boat. Maybe we've missed a trick, Mike. Yeah.
Like we said, you never know. The Chinese farmer. Remember that one. That one. You never know. You never know. So before we finish, Mark, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or do you think we've strung this out as long as we can for this long week as a Rovers fan?
I'll tell you what, we've done well there. What I would say, somebody asked me where I got my shirt framed. They can be very, very expensive. This isn't a plug. They've done nothing for me other than frame my shirt, and I paid them for it. But framed shirt it was. I said I would have a look because I had a look at a number of them. Very, very reasonable, bless them. Framed shirt, and it was on, I think, on Instagram. But framed shirt, I've got the email actually. 1 second. Framed shirt at outlook.com. Some good lads from Liverpool did it up, sent me it. Are you happy with this? Do you want it like this? I don't know if you can see actually. I'll just try to. So you can see I wanted the World Cup qualifiers badge in, but if I'd have had the other one, you couldn't really see his name. So Big Ben, we needed to see his name. So yeah, but they were a good set of lads. So happy to recommend them. Absolutely,
brilliant. And no one asked me about my stuff because obviously they don't care. So I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight.
To be fair, I think you've told us, haven't you? You told us when you were doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the range. I'm cheap.
Well, I mean,
frugal. I'm frugal. I'm like our transfer budget. It's cheap, but I get it done.
I would say you're able to do that. You've got the quality. I would have made it look like mine would have been a Lonsdale version. Let's put it that way. Artistry is not my forte. Yeah.
Oh well. Well, no one's asked me about where I got my hair done, but I did it myself in the shower. It took quite a while, so bit of a plug there to excuse the pun. But one thing that we are really chuffed about is these nice microphone covers, Mark.
These are.
I'll tell you what, I feel pro now.
We almost look like we know what we're doing, don't we? Looks can be deceiving though. These are they're tremendous.
They're lovely. I feel like we're going up in the world, and hopefully our club's going to join us improving as we go along. Mark, we said that this podcast could be half hour. Us being us, we've strung it out to 60 minutes. I don't think we have anything else to talk about, but hopefully next week we're going to have plenty to talk about. It's all going to be positive. It's going to be new signings. It's going to be all the positive stuff, and we're going to be talking about how brilliant a season we're going to have, aren't we?
100%, Mike. I've told you, we're not losing a game. I've already decided. Yeah.
Well, brilliant. Well, thanks for joining me, Mark, and everyone that's downloading, subscribing, doing all the good stuff. That's brilliant. Remember the competition. Remember to get in the comments down below. Join in the conversations. It's all good stuff. And we've also putting out some of the older content out there as well. Make sure you look at the older content as well, because it is stuff that is still relevant for what we're talking about today. So follow us on all the social medias, and hopefully next week we'll have lots more to talk about in the world of Blackburn Rovers. But until then, have a good one.